Blog Talk Radio.
Well, I always love Tuesdays, and boy, I'll tell you, it always starts out good. Kim Blyleven-Cohn just completed her show, Talking Candid Podcast. Todd Link, the comedian, was the guest, and now we go right into Cleveland, Ohio. We're so blessed with Peter Ray, the American Sports History Podcast, and his great guest coming in here today is just a mainstay in James Donaldson. And then we follow it up with the 412, the All Pittsburgh Podcast, with David Finoli and Chris Fletcher. BB Flannery is their guest, talking a little Duquesne basketball and stuff, so that will be fun. But this is now, that's later, and the other one's now on the past. So we look at what's going on now, and yours truly, Mark Mancini, producing this, 347-205-9631. You can catch this archive on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports, podcast platforms, wherever you subscribe to, powered by Mancini Media. So without further ado, it's more of him, less of me. Let me lay the red carpet down, put the podium in its place, and hand off the mic. Peter, first of all, how are you? Second of all, how can people get a hold of you? And third of all, you know, hearing James on the show with you is almost going together like peanut butter and jelly.
Hi, Mark. I'm doing well. I have a YouTube channel. It's a history channel. It's my name, Peter J. Ray, R-E-A. And you're absolutely right about tonight's guest, Mr. James Donaldson, who played in the NBA from 1980 to 1995. And he's from Sacramento, California, lives in Seattle, Washington. He has a book out recently. An NBA All-Star opens up about his mental health journey, celebrating your gift of life from the verge of suicide to a life of purpose and joy. So we'll be talking NBA history tonight and the very important topic of mental health. Welcome. It's just wonderful having you for the third time on the show, Mr. James Donaldson.
Hey, Peter. It's so great to be back with you. This is like an ongoing series now. I mean, but the topic is so important to talk about, this mental health issues and challenges that so many of us are going through. So I'm more than happy to come back as often as you want to talk about it. And that's what I do in my spare time. I'm out there talking to groups and school-age kids all the time about just encouraging them to hang in there no matter what.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. You know, obviously depression is a depressing topic, and my message to people would be like, it's so important to stay alive because look at things we need to do if we can make changes, get help, ask God for help, try to find a spiritual path, but we don't really understand sometimes that just staying alive, that itself is an achievement, and it will end. If I could, that would be my message to people. And you think it's never going to end. You think your life has no meaning. It's worthless. You should die. And no, that's not that. You know, sometimes we have to go through severe hardships, but they do end. And then we have things. And I'm so grateful and happy that I'm alive today because since I recovered about 8 years ago, I've a lot of wonderful things have happened. I've been able to do. So, would you like to talk about your important work with helping people have hope who have depression?
Yeah, I sure would, Peter. And I went through my real depths of depression and darkness and despair back in 2018. So it wasn't until 2019 where the darkness and the doom and gloom finally lifted. And I was able to get back on my feet on solid ground, mentally, physically, and putting my life all back together again. And since then, not a day goes by that I am just not so thankful and grateful that I am still here to work at this important work I'm doing, to rejoice in God's grace, and He brought me through. And just to let people know that, yes, I was in that place of hopelessness and despair where it felt like there was no tomorrow. And I know millions of people are going through this kind of thing where they feel like there is no tomorrow and a sense of hopelessness. But I'm here to tell you, my testimony, if that's what it is that there is a tomorrow. You will get through this, but you have to take some major steps yourself to make sure that you get the proper medical treatment and care, some therapy and counseling, and a good small group of intimate friends who really, truly care about you and love you to carry you through this. And that's what got me through. That's what will get you through as well.
Al from Cranston, Rhode Island, thanks for listening. Al says that the show is it's inspirational and that they need more of this in their state. Sheila from Edison, New Jersey, and she says we need to pick up the signs of depression. She's driving on Interstate 95 right now, listening on her Bluetooth. She's asking for the signs of depression.
Yes, well, there's a lot of signs of depression, and mental health issues are one of those things that you really can't tell just by looking at somebody from the outside what they may be going through. And as the old saying says that, many of us are tore up from the floor up on the inside, but you can't see it. And so signs of depression that are kind of obvious, but you have to be kind of tuned into it, is looking at someone who seems despondent, who seems almost lifeless. There's not a smile. There's not a sparkle in their eye. They feel and seem lethargic. They seem like they're all alone. They don't have anybody to talk to. They might sit in the lunchroom all by themselves. They might go out and sit in the hallway all by themselves. They don't really feel that social interaction, that social connection. And so when you see somebody acting like that, and other things, is maybe they're talking about hurting themselves. Maybe they're talking about, committing suicide. Maybe they're researching on these kind of topics, and they mention to somebody that they're looking at this and looking at that. Pull that person aside. Saddle up to them and befriend them, and just be a constant companion with them, to not so much talk with them, but to listen to them. When you're in that place, the last thing we need is someone to berate us and to judge us and to tell us, you should have done this, you could have done this, I would have done this, I would have done that. No. The best way to help somebody who's going through these kind of things is really just to saddle up next to them as a friend, and be that shoulder they can lean on and they can cry on. And believe you me, sooner or later, it may take a few minutes, it may take a few hours, maybe sometimes in total silence, that person will finally start opening up and conveying to you what's going on with them. And they will reach out to you and need your support and encouragement to get through what they're going through. That's just the first step, and you got to hang in there with them throughout and make yourself available to them even at 1 or 2 in the morning if they need somebody to talk to.
Yeah, those are really important points you're bringing up. Denise from San Francisco, thanks for listening, Denise. Eric from Rialto, California, he said he thinks people who we hang with could cause the negative, and he always tries to bother with people that truly care. That's I find it. My thought, you're talking about this issue, and we need to care. And the thing is, when you're really going through hell, and then people are busy, and then sometimes people are cold or they don't care, and we need to care. And that's one of the things that comes out of, if you survive a severe depression, you learn. You think, oh my God, and so we, in our busy lives, we do need to give people time and, like you said, listen and be respectful. And people often get burned when they open up, and people, like you said, they say, oh, come on, or the people can be hard on them and disrespectful and impatient. So it's just being respectful, I think, and as you said, listening. So it's such a we're very busy with many things, but this topic of human relations and how to and really be patient and respectful to people is such an important thing to think about, and to really it's because if we can, what are we doing on this world if we can't make a difference with people who are in going through hell?
Yes, right. And Peter, I think now more than ever. I mean, we live in a society now, in a country now that is so polarized, so divided, politically speaking, racial issues, cultural issues, vax versus non-vax, segregated into different groups now. And people are getting lost in the shuffle. We tend to have this tribal mentality where we try to find people that think like us and feel like us and understand us. But we're going into all different directions now instead of coming together. And this is what we need more than anything now, is to come together and just treat each other, as a person, as humanely as possible, with compassion and love. And that will really help all of us through, because all of us are going through something now. Some of us to various degrees. Some of us, it's driving us into depths of depression. Some of us, it's causing us to, lose our jobs and be anxious about losing our homes and our income. Families are fighting amongst each other. All the issues at the household, domestic violence, child abuse, drug abuse, substance abuse, all those things are going off the chart. And it's because of the crazy things that all of us are going through right now. And we just need to come together as people and just say, hey, I love you. I'm going to be here for you, and I'm going to support you, and I hope you'll do likewise.
David from Sparks, Nevada, thanks for listening. David says that James Donaldson is the man, and he enjoys my work as a moderator. Thank you so much, David, for those comments. I want to switch to basketball. The 1980s was an era when the NBA really took off in popularity, and the public's attention was captivated by the rivalry between Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics and Magic Johnson and the LA Lakers. And you had a front row seat to that, right? to what happened. So, what are your thoughts on that, on Larry Bird and Magic and the Celtics Lakers?
Those were the glory days of the NBA, all through the 80s, with Magic and Bird going at it, the Lakers and the Celtics. And, of course, there were a lot of good teams around, but most of us could not get by those two dynasties that were competing for each other, against each other for almost every NBA championship. They just came out with an additional 25 players to the all-time greatest 75 players in NBA history. Now, the original 50 greatest player list that came out in 1996, I counted and looked at, and I played against 37 of those original 50 all-time greatest players. They're adding a lot of great players now, and I played against some of them, most of them even, but it's so speculative, There's so many great players that have been left out and have been forgotten for their greatness on the basketball court. So, it's just one of those things, just tongue-in-cheek, and say, yeah, they're all great players. These are the ones that have been highlighted to be in the top 75, and that's good. We'll do, in 25 years, we'll do the top 100. We'll see who else gets in.
I was looking at your Wikipedia page, and some things that jumped out at me when you went from the Clippers to the Mavs, and you said you felt like you had died and gone to heaven. And then, of course, the Mavs got to Game 7 of the West Finals, and then things deteriorated. And it says that you were blamed, apparently, that you became a target of many fans and teammates, and then you made the All-Star team during that time. The New York Daily News named you the worst All-Star player ever. So you got hit pretty hard there. What are your thoughts on your years with the Mavs?
Well, they were my best years in the NBA. I was playing at the top of my game. The reason that they called me one of the worst all-star picks is because I didn't score a lot of points. I grabbed a lot of rebounds and blocked a lot of shots and was a key, vital part of our Dallas Maverick teams. But, in this day and age, and back even then, if you didn't score, you didn't make the headlines, really. So I wasn't a big scorer, probably 8 points a game or so, 9, 10 rebounds a game, whatever. And it was just one of those oddities where you looked at it and said, wow, just very pedestrian statistics and numbers. But, I don't think people saw. And if you know the game of basketball, you would see the value I had to the Dallas Mavericks, which is why I said I died and went to heaven when I left that very dysfunctional LA Clipper team that barely won 30 games a year, and I went to a Maverick team that was winning 50, 55 games a year and competing right there with the San Antonio Spurs, the LA Lakers, the Phoenix Suns, all these great teams, Utah Jazz. We had a lot of great teams in the West back then. So I take it in stride. I know the value I brought to my team. My teammates realize that as well. And it's not all about statistics, but if you're a statistics-minded kind of person, yeah, you'll look at my stats and say, well, he's just an average player. He'll never be one of the top 75 or top 100 or top 500, when they get to that point. But I'm totally fine with that. I think I put in a lot of great work into my game and was a great teammate to all of my teammates that I had.
Eddie from Kensington, Pennsylvania, thanks for listening. Eddie says the NBA today could not hold a lick to the past with Larry Bird, Magic, Malone, and Jordan. He says Kevin Durant's on this list, and Pete Maravich would have destroyed him. Carl from Waco, Texas. Hey, James, your thoughts on Donald Carter, the owner? He loves the J.R. Ewing look he had.
Yeah, Donald Carter, the Carter family, they owned the Mavericks when I was playing there. This was really a homey, folksy kind of a person who just really loved the guys in the team, almost to a fault. One of the Achilles heels that we had with the team was sometimes the owners would just kind of get a little bit too involved with the players on a personal nature and not let the coaches coach. Dick Motta was our coach, a real old school, hardline coach, fundamentally sound, teaching the guys day and night, discipline. And so when Dick Motta was a coach, they often butted heads together with Don Carter and Dick Motta. Don Carter loved Mark Aguirre, and we built our team around Mark Aguirre as the first pick in Maverick history back in 1980, and was the way it was. But Aguirre was a great player, but he wasn't a great leader as far as a Magic Johnson type, although he wanted to be, or an Isaiah Thomas type. Those great players that Aguirre was very friendly with. And so we just, as we grew and matured as a team into the mid-'80s, late 80s, another great player came along named Roy Tarpley. And again, Carter gets involved, and he's handling these superstar players with kid gloves, creating an obvious double standard for them and for the rest of the team. And that just really causes division and resentment at some point. All of us are working hard to be the best we can be the best team we can be. But, you have to let the coaches coach. You have to have a real strong-handed coach who can really control the egos and the personalities on the team. And that's what really makes these great teams great.
Mitchell from Corvallis, Oregon. Welcome to the show. Mitchell talks about how tough it is to be a star in college, then they get to the pros and struggle. Fred from Visalia, California, wants to bring back the Kentucky Colonels and Artis Gilmore. Dave from Alpharetta, Georgia. Hey, James, I really think Stan Albeck was an underrated coach along with Al Adels. Any thoughts?
Oh, I agree. Both those coaches were fantastic coaches. But again, back in those days, we were going against a couple of dynasties in the Celtics and the Lakers, and the occasional breakthrough, was just an occasional one and done kind of thing, because the Lakers and Celtics would reload year after year and be right back in the finals again. So we had a lot of great coaches back then. John McLeod was down in Phoenix, and he became our Maverick coach. Stan Albeck, Frank Layden up in Utah. All these great coaches were around, Hubie Brown and everybody else. But it's so hard to break through teams that are destined for greatness, and are an actual dynasty year after year.
Dave also loves Jim Jones. I wanted to bring up something here about, you looked at your career. I find it hard to believe, although I understand it, because the emphasis as a sports fan is to win championships, and it's like World Series, Super Bowl, NBA Finals, and it's and the mentality of the fan seems to be that or nothing, and it's like, and then they're hard on this. And you wonder why people are depressed. And when you think like, you really had a tremendous career, and then this negativity that you were getting, this criticism, like, there's a team, only one team's going to win.
Yes.
And are you going to just say all these guys, you're all failures because you didn't win and that's a bunch of nonsense, but that seems to be the mentality. So we, as fans, I think we need to change our thinking and enjoy the game, win or lose. So we have to evolve. And this gets into this issue of depression. We have to evolve. We have to care. And we have to see good and give people credit. I mean, I imagine how frustrating it is, especially when they say things like, "Oh, LeBron James, he won a title with nobody. It was just him." And all these other guys, they're like, it's so disrespectful. And so, we have to give people credit.
Only, like you mentioned, Peter, only a few teams and a few players will end up winning championships in their careers. So many of the guys, I mean, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, all these great players I played against and played with never, ever won a championship. And you can't take away their accomplishments. Now, there's a recent discussion about Reggie Miller, who never won a championship, having a statue outside of the arena in Indianapolis where the Indiana Pacers play. I don't know if that warrants a statue. I mean, he was beloved. He had his whole career with Indiana. He did a great job. They never won the championship. But, maybe that will start a trend of honoring your really great, all-time great players with some kind of, way to memorialize them into the past and into the future. And so, but I look at so many great players I played with and against, and none of us, won a championship, but you can't take away our accomplishments.
Yeah, as a fan, I'd just like to say to all the guys who played for Cleveland sports teams, hey, I just love those guys, especially from the 70s, and yeah, I mean, just enjoy it. I mean, you don't that can't be your criterion. We can't just say, oh, that's the only thing that matters, and just. So anyway, that's my thought to give, because I know the players feel that pressure and from the fan, and I think that's really tough on these guys. They think, oh, I didn't. Especially if you come short, you think, oh, if I had done this or I'd done that, and then you have regret. There's gonna be it's 1 out of 30. So we have to just change our thinking on this all and understand because this I'm sure this is probably a cause of depression. When we're so hard on each other and even in regular life, when all the pressure children are under from their parents to get high grades, to be great athletes, and then they feel like they can't meet these expectations. And athletes, there's so much pressure on athletes. Relentless pressure to win every game and win games, and then the playoffs come, and then you don't win. It's like, and the fans. So we have to really change our thinking and enjoy. If you're a fan, enjoy it and give guys credit and have respect for the noble opponent and have respect for your team that maybe lost and you're disappointed.
Yeah, well, Peter, you're way too kind. As a competitive athlete. We all look at it as either you win or you lose. A second place just doesn't do anything for anybody. Now, the fans should take a different approach. Like you said, the fans, like you mentioned, should just appreciate the beauty of the game for the beauty of the game, no matter what sport it is, and continue to support and root your guys on to victory if they can be victorious. And if they come up short, you still support them. You still love them. You still honor them. But as competitive athletes, we have to take a different mindset because we're trying to win at all costs. And we realized early on that there's no trophy for second place. Well, none that you want to roll out in public and show everybody you came in second. And people always remember the championship teams when it comes down to it.
Now you were with the Knicks briefly, and you were with a memorable team, coaches Pat Riley, Patrick Ewing. Any thoughts on your time playing for the Knicks?
Well, I enjoyed playing for Pat Riley probably more than any coach I played with, and I played with some Hall of Fame coaches: Lenny Wilkins, Dick Motta, Jerry Sloan. Great coaches and great players back in their day, except for Dick Motta. And Pat Riley. Pat Riley had a way of motivating his team, though, and just having you feel like you're taking on the world. When you burst out of that locker room out into Madison Square Garden or onto the Forum in Inglewood, you just come out there and you feel like you are taking, it's us against the world. And that's the way he motivated his guys. What a master motivating, inspiring coach he is. And I just really, really enjoyed my short time with him. I was only with him for half a season. We ended up losing in 7 games to Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls in 1992. But, you know, it was a great run. And so many of those great players never won a championship either. So, you know, Charles Oakley and John Starks and you know, Greg Anthony, all these guys. Anthony Mason, we were all just a wonderful, wonderful, well-knit team that really played hard together, practiced hard together, and was there for each other every day.
And interesting is that you saw the transition, you saw the new era, and that you went to the Jazz, who made it to the finals twice against Jordan and the Bulls, and you saw the beginning of the Michael Jordan era. Any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, this really was the beginning of the Michael Jordan era. Back in 92 when we lost. And matter of fact, we had the lead. We were up 3-2 at some point, and then we lost the last 2 games of the series. Michael Jordan had to pay his dues as well, though. First, you know, trying to get by the Boston Celtics, and then the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons, and finally broke through those couple layers of competitors who were doing their darndest to keep him back and keep him in his place. But he was just pure doggedness, determination, and willpower, and a thirst for winning. Kept on pushing himself, kept improving. Now, I remember Michael when he first came in the league. He was a great, great individual player, but he wasn't that much of a great team player. He didn't really make his teammates better until midway through his career, where he started making his teammates much better, and he was still the greatest player out there. So that was the evolution of Michael Jordan. People forget the early years where he was putting up 30 points a game, pretty much all by himself. And then the later years where he's getting everybody involved, still putting up almost 30 points a game and winning 6 NBA championships and 6 MVP trophies. What a magnificent career he had.
Well, the time has flown. Let's shift back to mental health. You have it's so nice to get back to that. Move back and forth between these two topics. You want to talk about your current work in the mental health field and encouraging people, and what you would have to say to someone who is depressed now, or who knows someone who might be depressed.
Right. Well, the first thing I would say is make sure that person reaches out for help. There's a lot of help available, but first step should be if you're not in a crisis situation, and if you are in a crisis, there's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline 24/7, and live people answer the phones and talk to you and work with you. There's a lot of different organizations around, regionally, statewide, nationally, that will help you. I'm a board member with NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and a board member out here in Washington. So there's a lot of great resources. But the first thing is, if you feel like you're just not quite yourself, you're just really dragging through the days, you're having trouble getting your days started, you're having trouble sleeping at night, make sure you reach out to your family doctor and just make an appointment to go in and let the doctor know exactly what you're going through and what you're feeling, especially if you're feeling like you want to do harm to yourself. That was my step I took. I wasn't sleeping through the night. I was waking up at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, tossing and turning the rest of the night until 6 or 7 or so when I finally got up and get going. So I'm running on a shortage of sleep in the first place. I'm becoming more anxious, becoming more irritable, and I went to see my doctor. I thought he was just going to give me a simple sleeping pill to get to sleep at night. But once I laid out to him what I was going through, he said, wow, James, you are really suffering from anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideations, and we have to get you help right away, which he did. He put me on prescription medications for about 6 months, antidepressant, anti-anxiety. He assigned a behavioral health counselor for me to talk to 2 or 3 times a week, which was very, very helpful. And then I pulled together a small, intimate group of friends and a couple of my old coaches who had known me since, 30, 40 years ago, almost back to high school. George Raveling and Coach Lenny Wilkins, and those two guys just really stayed right there with me and walked me through. And George Raveling told me, he's like, "Hey, James, I've known you since high school, and you have worked so hard to come so far, and I'm not going to let you throw all that away. So let's get through this." And we got through this together, and a couple other friends as well. So you have to have a support group around you, people who really, really care about you more than you care about yourself at the time, because I didn't care about myself. For me, life was over. There was no tomorrow, and it was just a matter of saying, wow, either I try to make it through this thing or I pull the plug and exit this world, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to really hang in there and try to make it through so I can finally and eventually tell my story like I've been telling it the last couple of years.
Our guest has been Mr. James Donaldson, a former NBA player and a leader in the mental health field. Do you have any final words for our listeners, Mr. James Donaldson?
Well, I just want them to know that there is plenty of help available. Going through mental health challenges, you feel like you're all alone. It's a very, very lonely, desolate journey. I went through it for 12 months, and, I've been there. I know what people are going through, but don't go through it alone. Make sure you find the help that is readily available to you. Find, even now, before you start going into anything really serious, find 2 or 3 people in your life that you could call at 2 in the morning, that you can confide in about anything and everything that's going on with you, that will be there for you unconditionally no matter what. That's what we need to have. And that way you're better prepared, because mental health challenges and issues will be the next pandemic that, we go through in this country, if not around the world. And there are not enough mental health professionals for everyone. So you have to prepare yourself to be better equipped to get through those difficult times. I did start up a nonprofit foundation called Your Gift of Life Foundation, and it's at yourgiftoflife.org. One of the things that we are really attempting to do is to help students who are going into the mental health fields for a degree, a mental health professional or what have you, especially students of color. We want to be able to scholarship these kids and get them on that pathway so they can get their degrees in mental health professionalism and go back to their communities of color that they've come from. There are not enough mental health professionals of color. And that's a big, big barrier for so many of us of color who want to go and see a mental health professional. And so we hope in the next 10 years, 15 years, we would make a big, big difference getting hundreds and hundreds of kids back out into the field with those credentials, and they could really help out their communities.
Our guest has been Mr. James Donaldson, former NBA player and a leader in the mental health field. Wonderful having him on the show. Next week we have Dawn Morgan, cheerleader for the Anaheim Ducks and Orlando Magic, and we will look to have Mr. James Donaldson on the show again. Dear listener, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Good night, everybody. Thanks again, Mr. James Donaldson.
Thank you so much, Peter, and all your wonderful audience out there. Everybody, be blessed.